So let's talk about some software that you use in your company, along with these websites we just shared that you guys essentially helps you do your job, in addition to the MLS and knowing your market, knowing the cross streets, right? What software is vital for a property manager? What did you use to scale your business to the amount of units you guys have taken on? What could you not live without?
It's a great question. First of all, one of the things we did really well early on is we teamed with the top software in the property management space, and that is AppFolio. And for your mom and pop, I own one property, you don't need something like that. Okay. But if you're going to manage 5, 10, you need a software that allows you to do the accounting, the marketing, and add-ons such as, cleaning, such as HOA integration, such as collections integration.
Does that work for STRs as well?
AppFolio does have an STR space. However, if we were going to do STRs, I might recommend something like Operto or something along those lines.
And is it mostly based for residential property managers?
Residential is their bread and butter. Again, as people get bigger, I think they've added HOA on there, but they can do student housing, they can do long-term, they can do short-term. But the bottom line is, look, you need a system that you're going to plug in and do most of the work for you. If you don't have a process and a technology that isn't pumping out your syndications out to the web so your property gets rented faster, or is not sending notices on delinquency or reminders of bounces, you're doing all the work, and time is money. And
can't scale. And that brings me to another question. We were chatting about this because I'm generally interested in this. At what point, Jason, did you turn the corner on a unit count, right? Because there are quite a few property managers out there that either were former agents or are agents,
right?
And they're like, hey, I'm tired of the grind. I'm tired of going to open houses and having open houses. Tired of escrows falling through, etc.
Right.
This is not how it looked on Instagram. There's a lot of work being an agent. So I'm going to be a property manager because then I'm going to get cash flow and I'm going to have all these clients and I'm going to be able to get listings off it and do all these, get all these perks. So how long should that agent expect it to take for them to become profitable or good or get to a place where they're like, you know what, this is actually working? How many units, what's the proper expectation?
Let me get on my soapbox here for a second. First of all, the industry of residential property management is not that old. I mean, it's just coming in a maturing phase. It's probably a good 20, 25 years old. 20, 25 years ago, you would have been an agent who manages a couple properties as extra side income. Nowadays, you have companies solely focused on property management, or they might also have a brokerage wing, but they're able to do volume, scale, and provide service, at cost. Now, if you're an agent and you're managing a handful of, 5 or so properties, it's totally fine. You got enough bandwidth, you could probably take care of it and be okay. But once you get out of that 5 or 10 range, you don't have the bandwidth. And sure enough, you're going to get those negative reviews, by some tenant or some prospect. You just don't have the time to fulfill quality service. But you don't really make a lot of money at 10. I think we talked about this. Let's say the average agent doing property management on the side makes $200 a month. 10 properties at $200, I'm not a math genius, that's $2,000 a month. You're not feeding your family on that.
Right.
You barely go sell another house. You're making a lot more if you do one more deal than you are managing 10, even 20 properties. So when you ask me, Jonathan, like, when does an agent turn the corner? I would have to say that under about 50 properties, they're struggling. It's that 10 to 50 where they're doing everything on their own. It's all bootstrap, and then they're slowly adding in efficient technology, efficient services. They maybe are able to add another player onto their team, and that's when they're able to balance cost and quality of service and maybe make a nickel or two.
Copy. So about 50 is when you start to turn the corner.
Right.
You can start to scale a little bit, maybe add some additional players onto the team.
Right.
And then grow. And we're talking about ones though, right? We're talking about SFRs or singles in 1 through 4.
Yeah, 1 through 4. And again, let's differentiate. For those, let's say doing, your 8, 12, 16 unit, that's a beast. And if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to up real quick.
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, the laws are all different, especially not just here in San Diego and California wide, but the laws are different. And number 2, the way you go about managing the whole technique and goals is different as well. Something that a single family manager might want to do is different than a boutique or multifamily manager.
Got it. Now let's talk about property management versus, I own 4 doors and I don't see, any reason to pay someone $6, $7, $8, $9, 10% to manage my units. Tell me kind of what the pros and cons are and where that line is where, hey, you just have too much now. It would behoove you to hire a property manager.
This is a question I get all the time, and this is the best question. So let's just start off with what is the basic math? I'm assuming you're making more than about $50 an hour, Jonathan, in your day job. And so let's say that you're spending on average about 4 hours a month managing your property. Okay, that's about $200 a month, and that's pretty much the number you're going to work with, right? Some month it might be just collecting rent and doing a little bit of accounting. Some month it might be 10 hours trying to work out a plumbing issue. Okay, but if you think you're in your time is spending around $200 to $300 a month, now focus on what's the average property manager? Somewhere from 8 to 10%. Average rent here is what? $2,500 a month is the average rent here in San Diego. So a professional property manager, that's all they do. They send you the check and a statement every month. They're about $250. Okay, so you and your time is equal to about $200 a month, and you're going to hire a professional at about 8 to 10%, and they're about $250 a month.
Well, what do you say to the property owner that says, well, I know that I'm doing a good job because it's mine?
Yeah, fair enough. And to be honest, a lot of times you could be doing a good job, but it's kind of a number of attrition. Look, I run into people all the time that they're doing great on the first or the second tenant, but that's your first or second tenant you've managed. You've got 2 or 3 rental properties. I managed that before breakfast. So I've seen and dealt with a lot more than you. And what happens is a lot of clients, they do okay because they haven't run into an issue. But when you do run into that issue, they tend to treat the situation by applying common sense. And landlord-tenant law doesn't operate on common sense. And that is the common problem.
Love it, bro. Let's talk about deal flow.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
So on the investor side, the property management side, obviously acquisition is huge for any business, right?
Right.
You gotta have clients. No revenue, no business. Tell me how hard it is right now to find deals out there that are penciling for investors, especially let's focus on the San Diego market for the sake of kind of our audience. Finding deals here in San Diego, burring deals in San Diego, and how those things can be problematic, and also, what the upside is.
Well, look, I've seen a lot of investors turn away from the long term and try to make STR work because they can't burr a deal. They can't get the numbers to work. That's how tough it's been to get something to pencil out. So I always refer back to my pros, my developers, my people going off market and finding good purchases. That's where it starts. I can't give you pie in the sky rents. The rents are what they are. So if you bought something that the rent doesn't care about your mortgage. It doesn't care about your remodeling costs. It doesn't care about your carrying costs. The rents are the rent.
So I think the point you're trying to make is, hey guys, you chose to purchase property in San Diego.
Right.
It's expensive.
Yep.
High barrier of entry.
Yep.
You have to put up a certain amount of cash to buy this property, and you're going to have a mortgage payment because you have debt on that property that's going to essentially have to be paid. Your rent, your point, which I really like, is, well, the market speaks of what a rent is, what rents are. And if the rent's $3,000, the rent's $3,000.
Right.
Now you can get beautiful finishes. You could have a pool. You could have extra parking, whatever. Maybe we can get you $3,150.
10%. Let's say you, the developer, can move the needle 10%.
Okay, let's say I can get you $3,300. But still, if my mortgage is $4,700,
nothing I can do.
There's nothing you can do.
Nothing I can do.
Yeah.
Let me throw something back at you too. I love how creative my developers have gotten, though. People like yourself, I see doing, first of all, hustling deals, finding stuff off market that pencils right away. That's huge. But the other thing is being creative. I just had a developer bring me what was originally a single family home, and he did enough breakup, and now it's a
fourplex.
fourplex.
Jason's so good at sales. This entire friendship, he's been trying to get in my portfolio. It's just now clicking that he's been softening me up to get my portfolio, but I absolutely love it. And it's very, very true. So what we do, Jason, is we'll take a distressed property, we buy it, rehab it, put a tenant in there, cover our float. Now, we don't always cash flow.
Right.
Our debt is a little bit more expensive because we're using hard money generally, but that makes our job easier. I don't have to walk through Fannie Freddie guidelines. I can turn the money over quick. I can get my debt quick in place, get my tenant there, but my negative cash flow, I just include in my soft costs. And then I essentially use my team to develop that property, walk through the process, and then I build. I'm not paying the piper everywhere.
Right.
And so now I'm creating arbitrage, which is another word for profit. because I'm essentially making one unit now 7 or 8.
Yep.
And I'm doing that by touching all the points. And then I can stabilize that. I can cash flow it. I can get my equity out and I can redistribute it. It's a system that we have built. I didn't invent it, but we have put all of our time, effort, and energy into making it better.
But how
love
many people have you seen on their first go around hear that on a podcast and try to do it on their own and absolutely faceplant? Like, you do need to have a little experience. You gotta.
Yeah, we like who, okay, and how.
Right.
Because there's a saying out there, it's who, not how. I think you need who and how.
Right.
Especially when you're talking about developing real estate. Because I'll tell you this, I jumped before I was ready and I took it on the chin, brother.
Been there.
I took it on the chin, brother. I wouldn't have done it any other way now looking back, Jay, because I learned so much.
Failure's
but
a great teacher.
I also know, shoot, I should have got a mentor first. I should have went to more meetups. I should have asked more questions. But at the end of the day, so you and I are both, products of that. You got to learn on the go too. You got to get started. You can't be, paralyzed by paralysis by analysis.
Right.
Let's move on here to your skip the line hacks, Jay. We are right up on time. Tell me some hacks for the people, whether they're new in property management, they've been in property management forever, they want to go from commercial or retail to residential. There's an agent out in Alabama or someone who's listening to this and be like, hey, I don't want to be an agent anymore. I want to be a property manager, etc. Or just something else in business that you want to share.
I'd love it. Let me start by something for everybody, anybody who's getting in the rental game. Number one, be conservative when you rent out the property the first time. You want a line around the block so you can choose the applicant that you're going to put in the property. You're cutting down on vacancy. And guess what? According to Zillow's 2023 survey, people who are staying at least 1 year end up staying 5 years. So you get them in at a little bit below market and they don't go anywhere. And you raise the rent 5 to 7% every renewal. And then you have a tenant for
How valuable is the reduction in turnover for the yield?
Anybody who's not penciling in at least a month, and that's if you know what you're doing, you've just lost your mind. Back in the day, I used to hear people go like, I don't want any vacancy. I want one tenant to move out and the next one to move in. Like, good luck. Good luck. Maybe. Oh, you only manage one property and you live next door to it? Maybe you can do it, but that's not the norm. At least 1 month, but you should average in between the time somebody moves out and the time you actually get money when the next person moves in. Not when they sign the lease, when they move in, average is 45 to 50 days. So you're almost got 2 months in vacancy right there, plus the cost of turn. That kills you.
Got it. One more skip the line hack for the people, Jay.
So just in general, understand that you get what you pay for. So look, if you're managing your own, totally good. But if you are ready to hire a professional, just understand that, if you're getting the cheapest person on the block, it's probably not what it meant to be.
Yep. Pay a little more, get a little more, but make sure you vet who the person is.
Yeah.
Make sure you look at their reviews.
Yeah.
If you can meet the person who founded the company like you can with Jason and his team, that's a good way to start as well. Jason Yas, thanks, man.
Hey, man, thanks for having me on. Love it, brother.
Cheers, brother. Go Padres.
Go Pods.